They proposed 3 models of fairness which would need discussion: utilitarianism, Rawls, who talked about the difference principle, and Amartya Sen, who talked about capabilities. And for the reasons of time, I won't go through their theories. Very interesting, but it would take me a whole day to go through their theories. But I will leave those with you, so that just food for us to think about, and perhaps have another conference next year about the principles of fairness. And we've got a lot of work to do, because from the same research from Joseph Rowntree Foundation, they found out that only 20% of people believe that poverty is a result of social injustice. 34% believe that it's inevitable, 27% think it's laziness, and 10% think it's down to luck. So we also need to challenge public perception, because we need a groundswell of people working to make sure that we have that we move forward on this. So Economics UK, we're working for equality via economic justice. I've already said that social inclusion is dependent on economic inclusion. And it's one of the things that the Reverend Jackson says, that we're now in the 4th movement. We may have got rid of slavery and colonialism to most extent. We may have got rid of segregation and apartheid. And don't forget, apartheid was only dismantled 20 years ago. Equality as a concept is fairly new. We didn't have any legislation 50 years ago. We had legalized segregation in the US and no voting rights for black people 50 years ago. We had trenchant discrimination, and still do in some parts of Ireland and in England right now. But 50 years ago, there was no legislation. So it's a fairly new concept, which is why we need the discussions about equality and what it actually means and what the principles of fairness are. We have voting, civil and human rights in theory, but we don't always get it in equal measure. And now the 4th movement is access to capital and technology. And that's what we don't actually have. So I'm going to end by saying to you, any economic recovery not only needs to build equality measures, it also is dependent on them. Without tackling the inequalities, the gap between rich and poor will continue to grow. And that means that as the gap grows, the length of time for economic recovery will also be stretched, because there will be no social inclusion. We will not be able to encourage people to contribute to the economy of any country. It may take bravery to say that egalitarianism and equality are central to economic recovery. But as Jessie says, justice needs a sharp axe to fell a big tree, and its roots, which at the moment are caught in a negative swamp. So let's all change the discourse together. Challenge any C words like cohesion and citizenship. Interrogate any I words like integration, Islamophobia, institutional, internment, immigration. Sorry, I've said that as well. Deliberate any D words, diversity and discrimination. What do they actually mean? Are they realities? And move to a much more positive and evidence-based framework to rely on our R's. Be careful how you say that. Rights, responsibility, research, respect, records, and restorative justice, and to encourage the use of E's. And I don't mean the little white tablets here, but equality, employment, economic equity, evidence, efficiency, empowerment, enforcement, and economics. Thank you very much for listening to me.